Well, hey y'all, it's Tracy Mack, your favorite podcast host of Black Women's World Podcast. That's the BWWP, baby. Now don't get it twisted. To all my sister Nistas and sister Nista lovers from all over the world, I've been sharing quite a bit here lately about circle shifts. When things change, relationships move. Sometimes they move at the speed of trust. But either way they change, we change. Change is inevitable. The reason why we are still able to be here is because we know how to adapt to change. And so our circle shifts sometimes. But what do you do when you are in the middle of a circle shift? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Black Women's World, where Black women vibe and thrive together. And if you ain't a Black woman, you'll get to know at least one. Because this Black Women's World, my Black woman's world, is whatever I say it is, simply because I am. So welcome, Sister Nistas and Sister Nista lovers. We're here for you. Much love and peace. Well, hey y'all, it's Tracy Mack. Listen, I got two things for you this morning. I came to Office Max. I thought they opened at 8, so I'm here early. They don't open until 8:30. And so when I got ready to come in the parking lot, the way I came in, I saw all these cars and I was like, oh my God, everybody else at Office Max this morning? And I said, maybe I waited too late, whatever. And so, but then when I got a little closer, I realized there's a huge crowd. Let me see if I can turn my camera. I don't know if y'all can see. But the crowd is at the grand opening of our local home goods store. And I thought about that thing because I almost turned around. I was like, wait a minute, I don't have that much time. I came here, want to be the first one in the door because I got about 1,000 pages or more of documents. And like I said, I don't want to put all that wear and tear on my printer. And so, but I thought about that. If you just keep going, sometimes you'll find out. Don't get discouraged because where you're going, it may not be where the crowd is. And that has been the story of my life. I've almost always felt like I was going in the opposite direction. Sometimes very discouraging, but even when I started coaching, when I started looking into certification was 2003. That's when business coaching really began to shift into life coaching. And Tim Galway's book called The Inner Game is how that shift happened. And that book is really about tennis. For those of you who didn't know, the history of coaching, the word coach, like if you can think about the Cinderella was carried in a coach to take somebody from one place to another. That's the history of life coaching and business coaching. So when that shift happened, I didn't see, we were living in Japan and I didn't see anybody there who looked like me. And when I came back stateside, I couldn't find many Black women who were coaching. And so church folks said it was too secular. And the way I wanted to approach coaching, corporate and business spaces said it was too spiritual. So I kept falling in the middle. And then when I was writing music back in the day, I think I shared the story where I had included one of the guys in the group to do a rap. And the church one of the churches, because it happened a couple times, they didn't pay us because the guy put a rap in the song because they said it was too secular. But then we couldn't be put on. Neo Soul was just kind of hitting the scene, but we were too spiritual for Neo Soul. So I always found myself in the middle or going against the grain. But I'm gonna tell you, sometimes the road less traveled is where some of us just belong. And it's been so many times with that occurring in my life. And had I turned around because of the crowd, I would have missed the fact. I wish I could. Ain't nobody in the Office Depot parking lot but me and an employee that just went in. But the crowd, and it's gotten a little worse. The crowd is over at, I think I just made it fuzzy. The crowd is over at Home Goods. So if you're the type of person where you, like me, where a lot of times you do things the road less travel, even when I did, that just came to mind. When I did workplace and family conflict resolution certification, one of the questions that somebody asked me just after was, how long you been doing this kind of thing, negotiating, giving people a win-win in relationships, and it was before you go to court, workplace and family conflict resolution. And I thought about that thing. I said, I've been negotiating conflicts probably since when I was about 5 or 6 years old. Because in my home, My mom got saved first, and my dad only went to church to find out where she was going all the time. But oh boy, one day he walked in and something got a hold of him, and he got saved. And so my siblings were just teetering into their teenage years, adolescence. But when my dad got saved, the whole house had to get saved, and it was a lot. It was a lot of turmoil and friction and arguments and whatever. And I kind of sat in the middle, very mousy, because my parents were on one end and my siblings, who are 4 and 5 years older than me, were on the other end. And the only way there would be peace is if somebody was a negotiator. So at a young age, I learned then, for my own sake, because if the house was in turmoil, won't nobody happy. You know, everybody was mad, all off in their own rooms or off on their own sides. And then I was being pulled. If my parents would say, tell us everything they did, I would be a tattletale to my siblings. But if my siblings said, hey, you can be cool with us if you keep our secrets. So I had to figure out a way at a young age how to negotiate and bring people together. And that has kind of been the story of my life. And the second thing I want to say, at the risk of this video going at length, is when we talk about circle shifts, I've been talking about that quite a bit. One thing I don't want to dismiss is that it can be difficult when your circle shifts when you don't know what to do in between the shifting. And I have had so many times in my life, going back to growing up, military spaces where you leave people leave you. And not just military, just when relationships change. I remember when I was writing a lot of music, and I had a musician friend who was very, very in touch with the things as a musician. I mean, he played for Babyface, he played for Keisha Cole, Shaka Khan, Stevie Nicks, BB Winans, and it was just this connection that he and I had. And so when I was still writing, he started to introduce me to people who could help me with the instrumentation, because I don't play. And I'm also not a lead singer. So I can do the oohs and ahs in the backgrounds, but he introduced me to people who were lead singers, but he would never give me their contact information. I always had to go through him. And what that did was, when he couldn't be available, I had to wait to get in touch with people. And then there were a couple times in our relationship, you know, you off and on with some people, and anytime he and I were off, a whole vacuum happened in my life. I didn't have access to those people. Because sometimes when you're in a relationship with people and they bring people in the relationship, they take everybody with them when they go. And that has happened a lot of times in my life. But then I had to think about when it didn't happen. And I'm naming names today. And I probably shared this with people before, but I've got some new people who are with me now. Trice Hickman. She was my friend in high school. We were roommates my freshman year in college. And when I wasn't even planning to write my first book, she was a renowned author, at least in the eyes of all of us who came from small town Havelock. And so when I found out she was writing, and she and I began to talk and discuss different things, and she said, Tracy, you should write a book. And we talked about it. She said, I'll help you with the self-publishing aspect. And I was so used to people leaving me. I was so used to when people introduced me to other people and we formed family relationships, when that person puts a block between you and the other people, and when they leave, it's a vacuum and everybody else goes. And she didn't do that. She said, I'm going to give you their numbers so you can have direct access. And I was like, okay, I don't want to name drop. I won't tell them. She said, no, tell them I sent you. She said, that way you can get complete access. So when I think about those things and those times that in shifting, sometimes you get lonely. And sometimes when you've had those, when you're leaving one circle, and like I said, it's not necessarily negative, but when you're leaving one cycle or one circle, you're leaving those people or that way of being, and you haven't quite locked into the next one. So you don't have the people you're leaving, and you can't put weight on the relationships you're going into yet. And so I used to say, what do I do in the middle? Because it does get lonely when you're in the middle. You don't have this, but you don't have that yet. And I learned to create some time ago when I was going through therapy. one of my therapists said, and she said, Tracy, I believe you were manipulated into loneliness. But God was able to use that for your good, because every time I see this pattern that we've been discussing over the years, you tend to create in the loneliness. Because it's one thing of being with yourself versus by yourself. And I was left by myself quite a bit. But learning to create. And in that, a song that comes to mind that Dawkins and Dawkins, them brothers could write, and they still produce and write to this day. And I can't remember when the song came out, but it was, whenever I'm lonely, I call on you. I know you'll come to give me everything that I need. And it's got a fat bass. Whenever I'm down, I call on you to help me ease the pain. Whenever I'm lonely. Y'all go check that out. But I thought about those times when I was left maliciously. And what do I do in the middle, Lord? What do I do? I bring people with me. I don't strategize relationships that if you, I don't block people. If I bring you into my circle, everybody's got access to everybody. I'm trading numbers or whatever. I don't tell people if you're my friend, you can't be their friend. Or if I'm bringing you into this music space, you've got to go through me to get access to everybody. And so I know I'm saying a lot, and it's coupled between, if you're on the road alone, whether it be through circle shifts and you're alone, and you see a crowd, keep going. Don't pay attention to the crowd, because while they may be going into Home Goods, where there's a long line, it's at least 100 people out here, y'all, and the parking lot is crowded. You know, they're going to Home Goods. My home don't need no goods. I don't need to go to Home Goods. I need to go into Office Max and get these about 1,100 pages printed, because I'm doing something different. It doesn't make me any more and make anybody any less. We're just doing something different. So whether you're being different or indifferent in a circle shift, and you're in between, you know, figure out a way to create. Because I've always brought people along. And in those spaces of creation, when I'm coming up with something different or rinsing and repeating something, I always make sure that when I do it, I go it alone first. I'll go into the territory like Joshua and Caleb. I'll go in alone first to make sure everything is straight. I'll count the cost. And then I always bring people with me. And when I bring those people with me, I'm not there anymore to block them, or they don't have to go through me to have access to everything that I created, whether it be a stage, whether it be a podcast, whether it be anything. I don't block, because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like with my musician friend. We were cool, but he didn't give me access. But I also know what it feels like when my friend Trice said, you got all the access. And had it not been for her, I wouldn't have written 1, 2, 3 best-selling books. So yeah, and I want to be more like Trice. And when she did that for me, I made sure that I make a way to do that for other people. If I got, and we cool, if I got, you got. If I got relationships, you got those relationships. I don't tell nobody if that's my friend, or you can't talk to him or her because that's my friend. I'm like, you know, and to a fault, because sometimes it's burned me. Sometimes I've given people complete access. I know back in the day of music and stuff like that, I would give people complete access to this, that, and other. They walk off and do a project without me. And it's like, okay, but you know what? I'm still where I'm supposed to be today. You'll still be where you're supposed to be. Whether you too were manipulated into loneliness, you figure out a way. Figure out a way that in that space, in that shift space, where you're not too sure about anything, where you don't have the old relationship quite like it was, and the new relationship, you haven't developed the trust levels yet. In that median space, in the middle, figure out a way to be creative. Because whatever, if it's negative, whatever you come out of that other circle with, you're going to bring to the new circle. Them people don't deserve it. So use that time to get yourself sweet. You know, be with yourself. You know, it's the difference between being by yourself and with yourself. Be with yourself. Figure out ways to be creative, you know. And I know I'm saying a lot, but I started out in this thing of negotiating and helping people long time ago. This coaching thing, pastoring, chaplain, writing. This ain't just something I walked up on yesterday. I've been doing this, and like you, the things you're doing, they've been in you your whole life. your purpose, your mission, and passion aren't just things we just fall up on. You know, I've been negotiating and with workplace and family, should I say in family, my whole life. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But when I got the certification for workplace and family conflict resolution, I had so much experience, the only thing I needed was the language. The appropriate professional language to take into corporate spaces, churches, and every place I've taken it. So don't be moved by the crowd. They ain't going where you going. And if you always feel like you're going in the opposite direction, that may just be the way the God in you is set up. I'm grateful, and I love y'all for real. Much love and peace.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by Tracy Mack, Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of Sistanistas and Sistanista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what Sistanistas do, on purpose through mission with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my Sistanista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, Tracy Mack. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.